Hello, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. Welcome to the African Podcast TV. This podcast is about Africa, regarding the political side, the historical side, the cultural side, and so many more. Each week, I deliver my best thought and analysis regarding Africa. Here, your host, Amaduba. Join me to welcome my guest, Lady Juliet ukpabio Archibong. She's the foreign trade representative and CEO of Adiaha Trading. Thank you so much for joining me this weekend on African Podcast TV.
Thank you, Amadou. Let me say that in French. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you for joining me. Yes, we are here to talk about the African continental free trade, something really interesting for the African people and for the African countries, because that will help the African economy grow and that will help us to create more jobs in Africa. So, what do you think about the African continental free trade agreement and how do you see it?
Um, for me, I think that whoever initiated the AFCFTA agreement is a very, very forward-thinking person. I have had that intuition for about 5 years now, but I didn't have the opportunity to put that into implementation. But somewhat, it's amazing to see that, there's a global consciousness of the fact that Africa needs to begin to depend on itself. And so I'm very excited that the AFCFTA agreement has been launched. And let me say that the happenings of 2020, which is a pandemic, the global pandemic that hit us, made it even more clear that we needed to create a system where we would begin to grow our own things and we'll begin to become dependable on ourselves. So the AFCFTA agreement is a fantastic initiative, and I must salute the chief, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, for heading or leading this team of a new, I would say, a new continent, a new drive for Africa.
Good. So, okay, that's really interesting. But you know that if we are talking about the African Free Trade Agreement, we are talking about the movement of person between countries like from Nigeria to Ghana, from Ghana to Morocco, to make much easier for the African people. So, do you think that the African Free Trade Agreement will help the free movement of person, and how it will help the African economy?
Okay, so I'm going to take it from the first question, which is, would this help the movement of people, persons, and trade? Yes, that's the whole idea behind it. They're trying to create a system. It's like the Schengen system, where you can move from one country to another. You can move goods, services from one country to another without borders. And I don't see why we should have a continent where we are taking visas and we are paying duty tariffs and we are paying, we're going through so much scrutiny to move within our own continent. So the AFCFTA agreement is, of course, this is just the initial stages, but the vision for it is that we're going to be able to move freely. There's a lot of trading corridors within Africa. There's the Lagos Abidjan trading corridor. There's the South Africa and Botswana trading corridor. There's a lot of landlocked trading corridor. There's the rail line trading corridor. There's the ocean trading corridor. There are different trading corridors in Africa. And the moment that Africa begins to depend on itself, the better for us. Because why? Africa has gotten to the extent where our manufacturing levels are quite low. So we are dependent on importation. Importation, whether you like it or not, would depreciate your currency moving forward. And it would leave your citizens without the need to be sustainable for themselves, without the need to create opportunities for themselves. So when you have an agreement such as this being put in place, you are encouraging people to begin to make what they do. Like in Nigeria, there's a lot of emphasis on farming. If my neighbor is farming rice and 90% of my village they're all farming rice, please tell me who would buy this rice? By the time we all buy rice in Nigeria, we will all have pot bellies because we've eaten so much of the rice, and then we would have to throw them away. So a system like an initiative like EFCFTA that allows free movement means that we can sell our rice to neighboring countries like Benin Republic. Now let me bust your mind. Benin Republic has the highest number of importation, or rather, I think it takes up to 48% of their importation is rice. They are importing rice. You know, they are importing, and they're not importing rice from Africa. They are importing rice from India and other parts of the world. So imagine if Nigeria is manufacturing rice and Nigeria can sell to Benin Republic. Have we not solved a common problem within ourselves and kept our funding on our continent? This pandemic really made it very clear to us that we are in a situation where we have been so dependent on importation. Imagine where there's a global lockdown and you cannot buy what you would eat because what you buy to eat, you import it from another country. You see where the problem is?
Yes.
So an agreement like this allows us to keep whatever we import, whatever we manufacture. It will improve manufacturing. It will become, our continent will become industrialized. That's the word. Our continent becomes industrialized and we can trade within ourselves. Some 5 years ago, I went to a state in my country. It's called Abia State. There's an industrial city there called Aba. It's an equivalent of a Guangzhou in China. And I saw them move up to 5 lorries of footwear. They were moving into Cameroon. So imagine that Aba can manufacture a whole 5 full lorries of footwear in Africa and can sell. So that means that with an AFCFTA agreement, that means that a shoe designer in Ethiopia who is not able to manufacture in Ethiopia can manufacture from Nigeria. That's what it means. So I have dedicated a lot of my time, and in fact, I've created a product with Adiaha Trading. We have a platform that we've just created, which is about to be launched. It's called the Trade with Africa Direct. It's a B2B listing site for made in Africa manufacturers to list their product, their brands, or they put on their logo and tell people about what they do, so that other buyers who are looking for manufacturers in Africa can log on to this site and find them from different countries. Because if we don't begin to do this for ourselves, we're going to end up in another circle where we're not sustainable again. Imagine there's another pandemic that comes in and we cannot defend ourselves. We're in trouble.
Yes, we definitely. Yes, but hopefully we're not going to that. In case if another pandemic come in place, Africa will take the responsibility, because we know that now how it is. We will not accept to wait all the time. We have to wait something come from outside the continent to help us. That's something we definitely have to change. And I think and I believe that the African Free Trade Agreement, that's definitely something that's we have to make sure we keep working on it, even though they have been putting that in place since starting January 1st. But we have to work on it. We not just have to talk and put that in place without helping the African people. So how the African Trade Agreement is game changer for Africa, so for Africa's socio-economic development.
Now, when you keep your financing on your continent, you reinvest it into your people. Yeah, you reinvest it into your people. Your people have more funding for capacity building. They have more funding for manufacturing. They can expand their scope of manufacturing. They also have more markets to sell. Now, if I own a factory and I produce 10 pieces of this biro, yeah, when I know that I have markets, I have access to 10 different other countries, and I can sell 10 pieces of my biro in each of those countries. That's 100 pieces of biro compared to when I sell it in my own country, which I will only sell 10 pieces. I would begin to look for funding to expand my manufacturing capacity so that I can sell to those countries. That's what would happen. Because when I know that I have market to sell, I have a market that is waiting to buy from me, I will expand my manufacturing capacity. When I expand my manufacturing capacity, I will employ more people. Do you see how we're able to lift 30 million people out of poverty? Because if Mr. A is able to manufacture 10 barrels, that is his current capacity. He will only be employing 2 people. But when he knows that he's able to manufacture 100 barrels and he will sell it within 1 month, he is able to employ 10 people. So we are able to lift people out of poverty. I would say that even in my country, there's over 12 million people, 12 million businesses in my own country. I am Nigerian. There's about 12 million businesses in SMEs, MSMEs in Nigeria. And a whooping 80% of them, is it 80% or 60%? But it's more than more than half of them are manufacturers. So if I have markets for my products, I will expand. And when I expand, employ 10 more people. When you empower one person from each household, you've given them food to eat in that household. When you empower one person from each household, you've elevated them from $1 a day. I don't know if you get what I mean. You've elevated them from $1 a day. You've moved them, to another, to a minimum wage at least. That is how we would gradually improve the socioeconomic status of Africa, because we now have more people who have disposable income. The reason why, there's poverty in certain countries is because of the low disposable income available to the citizens. That's why they would say that in most West African countries, the products that sell are FMCGs. So there's a lot of sachet products. Why? Because they need to look at what people can afford. What's the disposable income of this person? If somebody earns a minimum wage of about $100 equivalent in a month, and he spends 80% of that $100 on food. Because for every country that has a low disposable income, their highest consumables are food, because they need to survive.
Yes.
So
really,
if a household, go on.
Yes. I said that's a really interesting point. And if I do understand that you are talking about how to create jobs, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So okay, that's really interesting point. We will definitely talk about that later on. But just my next question will be, how do you see intra-Africa trade, and what is your thought about regional trade integration in Africa?
Well, everything that I have said so far is a summary of how I see intra-African trade. I see it as the best thing that could happen since sliced bread, if I do say so myself, because we get to keep our funding on our continent. We get to empower our own people. We get to appreciate what we produce. We get to reduce the desire to consume what we cannot afford. It's a contentment thing. So we get to consume what we produce. And so when you do that, you are encouraging people, you are encouraging manufacturers to do better. You are encouraging banks to finance more businesses, because there's a market for them. Inter-African trade is the future for Africa. If we cannot trade within ourselves, we are in trouble. In big trouble, I tell you. So intra-African trade, I would say, is the future. And this is why I have dedicated a large part of my time to promoting this particular activity, to say, look, we need to support ourselves. I'm not saying when we produce things that are not up to standard and we force it on each other because we are trying to be patriotic. Absolutely not. I'm saying, and I do a lot of writing promoting purpose-driven brands. So if African brands can be purpose-driven, I don't see what we are going to be importing anymore.
Good. So, okay, good. So do you think that tackling barriers to intra-Africa trade can have positive effect on the poorest people, and how?
Yes, I think that it would have a very positive effect on the poorest people by job creation. If more factories were manufacturing something, they would need to hire more people. If you begin to hire more people, you begin to equip households. You elevate them from $1 a day to at least a minimum wage. So this is why it would elevate. I would use Nigeria as an example. There's a large middle class, and the difference between the middle class and the lower class is very tiny, very very thin. So it's the level of poor people are so much. There's so much that they just need a job. They just need something to put food on their table. And the only way you can elevate a country from poverty is by education. When you educate people, you give people access to opportunities. When you do that, they would go and create jobs for themselves. When they create jobs for themselves, money is directly proportional to the value you give. So if people have value in them and they trade their value, they get money in return. So definitely, the larger you have access to market for manufacturers, the more they have the capacity to manufacture. And then with inter-African trade, people can migrate from, where they live now to other countries in search of jobs. Other countries could hire them. Factories in other countries could hire them without so much bureaucracy and protocols to documentations and all of these kind of things like this. I think this is a whole fantastic arrangement. I pray so strongly that the leaders in charge of this initiative follow through as visionary as they have started it. I really hope so.
That's really a good point. Good point too. I hope so. They will definitely make sure because we know that sometimes, the most of the time in Africa, when they put a new system in place, after a little while is dead. It's like it's never happened. You see,
Exactly.
so hopefully this one will going to happen. I believe that this one going to happen because in 55 countries, 54 countries already sign in. So that's really something really interesting. That's going to help the African economy.
Ghana has already started trading on the block,
Yes.
so there's
Okay.
certain countries that need to create the infrastructures that would enable intra-African trading. There's something called a certificate of origin, which needs to be obtained. So that is the process system that allows intra-African trading. This is what is causing the delay. Most countries have not done that. They need to create that system, create border alignments, create digitalize documentation. Once that is done, I think we are good to go.
Good. So let's talk about the challenges because listening to you right now, you are talking about the challenges and then the issues regarding that point. So what are the challenges and the issues that face Africa regarding the intra-Africa trade and how to solve those challenges and issues?
You see, I will say something to you, Amadou. The truth is, until you begin something, you'll never really know all the details that are in it. So sometimes you need to already begin the process to identify the challenges that would crop up. But the initial challenges would be land, the road services. The roads are not very, very palatable for you to, for a land movement of goods and services. The roads are not very palatable. The Nigerian Abidjan corridor is a disaster. The roads are in very terrible condition. Now, there's also going to be the issues of not having train that can move things easier or move people easier. I think the only country that is already trading, even before AFCFTA, they've already been trading in South Africa because they have excellent road networks and then they have a train system that allows them trade between their country and the neighboring countries to them. So they are the only ones who are prepared. They are fully ready. Those are the challenges that we will face. And then there's the other challenge which I mentioned earlier about moving inferior goods. Because when you have products that nobody is checking, there's going to be a problem. We are going to flood the market with inferior products. These are the challenges. But then again, you may never know all the challenges until you begin to walk in the shoes. Then you know what side of the shoes really hurts you.
Yes.
So I would say that until the countries begin to move, they would not be able to discover what challenges exist.
Yes, that's really interesting, because we know that we have a lot of challenges. Like you said, we have the infrastructure challenges. We don't have like a really good roads between countries, and you give a really good example regarding what's going on in Europe. You see what Europe did between those countries. You can move between France to Germany, between Germany to another country easily, but they just need some identification. Hopefully, Africa will do the same about the African Free Trade Agreement. Hopefully, so in your view, how do trade barriers affect the African economy, and why it is difficult for African countries to trade with one another?
So, without being so negative, I would say that most times our systems are not beneficial to us. The systems that we've put in place are not beneficial to us. Someone was telling me, in fact, Siabulela was telling me about a friend of his who was buying fish feed from, I think it was from Botswana. It was cheaper for him to buy fish feed for his farm in Johannesburg from Botswana. However, he could not import that fish feed because the tariffs he will incur to bring that fish feed from Botswana to South Africa, he might as well sell his entire fish farm. So these are the challenges that that exist, and these are the difficulties that you could encounter. Eliminating these tariffs would go a long way to reduce the cost of an item, the landing cost or the direct cost of importing one product. When you eliminate these charges, that's what it does. Eliminating these trade barriers. In Nigeria, I don't want to go into the details of our port here. It's like you're fighting an entire nation. Just to get your container from the port in Nigeria. It's a lot of bureaucracy that goes into it. These are the difficulties why African countries cannot trade with themselves. And there's also the cases of bribery, corruption, things being done behind the scenes. There's a lot of secrecy. We need things to be transparent. We need processes to be transparent. We need trade processes to be transparent. We need to know if I'm moving one item from my country to the other country, I need to know what I'm paying for. I don't want a situation where they tell me at this border I pay here. I get to the next border, I pay something else. I get to another border, I pay something else. These are all the problems that has caused Africa not to trade within themselves. I still am a trader. I used to import things from Cotonou, which is next door to me, into Lagos. There's a lot of drama on the road.
I see.
How many miles? Yeah, there's so much drama. So much drama in terms of customs, in terms of this, you have to pay here, you pay there. So at the end of the day, you are looking at yourself and you're saying, what are you even paying? What are you really paying for? So is it directly proportional to the cost of the items you're selling?
Really, but in your opinion again, or in your knowledge, so what do you think the African government should do against that?
Well, that's the sensitization that they already have begun to do. That's why all the countries that have adapted the AfCFTA have signed these agreements. They begin to do the ratification processes. to create a free flow. So they have the rules of exports under AFCFTA is that you need to have a rule of origin that allows your products to be identified as a made in Africa product. So that's what all the countries are creating now. Once this is done, I am very certain that there will be ease of movement along those borders.
Good. So let's talk about COVID-19 again, because you know that COVID-19 has been impacting the African economy. In the other hand, the world economy. So, in your opinion, how COVID-19 impacted the Africa trade market opportunities and how to boost the integration trade in Africa?
How did COVID-19 impacted us in the sense that there are lots of things we couldn't access. I'll use my country as an example. We are so dependent on importation that our currency is like a little child. So once importation, the demand increases, our currency downslopes. You understand? So we are at the mercy of of our currency. That's how with the COVID-19, there was nobody could travel, nobody could import anything, and so automatically people were changing their naira to dollar, and that increased and skyrocketed the demand for dollar, which meant that anybody who was importing anything was going to be buying dollar at almost, I would say it used to be 300 naira. You were buying dollar at almost 500 naira if you were buying black markets in Nigeria.
Okay.
This caused the demand for food, or rather the cost of living, to increase because we are depending on importation.
Good. So do you think that Africa need more international trade agreement to support its growth, and how?
I don't think that Africa needs more international trade agreements. I think that Africa needs to begin to trade within itself first, to understand what direction it wants to go. If we get to a state where we know that we need help, then we can ask for help. That's the way that I see it for now. I don't think that Africa needs any more trade agreements, to be honest. Otherwise, we are going to still be dependent on importation. So our second currency will be the US dollars. And then our currencies become devalued.
Okay, I do understand that you're making a good point, but just think about that. This is 2021, so we live in the world where we're talking about globalization, and we definitely need, and we definitely need those people from somewhere else, to help us, especially Africa, to help us our economy grow. But I do understand that some people has been saying that we don't need those people because they're not doing what they're supposed to do to help our economy grow. But in the other hand, I don't blame them. We just have to blame our leaders, because that's our leader.
I'm not even saying we don't need them. All I'm saying is, you see, for a child to begin walking, they need to crawl first. Yeah, we need to begin to trade first. Let's see where we need help, and then we can ask for help. We've been so dependent over time that, for every little challenge we face, we fall right back. I'm not sure we're going to ever be able to stand up if we continue this way. Nobody's going to respect you if you don't respect yourself. Let me just tell you that in plain English. Nobody's going to respect you if you don't respect yourself. You need to begin to show that this is what we can do. So what can you do for us? It's a negotiation. It's not a cry for help. It's a negotiation.
So if I do understand you said that Africa has to start doing it by themselves, and then now some countries will come and then help them.
Voila. There's a lot of foreign direct investment that comes in. I mean, in my job, I facilitate investment, people who want to come in, market entry services, people who want to come to do business in Nigeria. And they want to import into Nigeria. And I always, because you see, I'm in that position. So I would always say to them, look, why don't we look at it this other way? I have somebody who had contacted me and said he wanted to begin to import sachet tomatoes into Nigeria. And I said to him, why don't we try you setting up a sachet tomato manufacturing plant in Nigeria instead? This is you bringing your money from your country and utilizing our raw materials.
Good.
If you understand what is better for us than you import something. We have a lot of tomato, and then we had to do a whole research for him. My team and I had to create a research to help him understand the species of tomatoes we had, the farmland that was available, what it will cost him to set up that factory here on the long run, the benefits of that on the long run. So these are the kind of investments we need to begin to encourage if we need help. That is the help I'm talking about.
Okay, really interesting. So how do you see the African trade free, African trade free agreement in the future, in the long term, like 10 years from now? How do you see it?
I see that we would get to a stage where we would need to unify our trading currency. You know, we will perhaps begin to unify a lot of things that serves us, the trading partners. The currency is a big one. We'll begin to unify also our passport systems, our visa systems, our travel systems. We'll begin to unify a lot of labor laws that will suit people coming from other countries, migration of human resources. That's what I see in 10 years. The currency would, having a unified currency would be the apex of everything that we have worked for so far.
Mm-hmm. Anything else would you like to add? We are about to end this interview.
Absolutely not. Well, okay. Well, I could add that I am advocating for African business owners to begin to build purpose-driven brands for us to be able to see the changes that we want to see on our continent. We have a lot of businesses to do here. We have a lot of people who have needs that we can supply to. We have markets that we need to access within ourselves. There's 54 countries signed on to this trade agreement. That's a total of over 300 billion human beings that we can sell to. And so I would encourage them to please begin to build purpose-driven brands that can produce products and services that your African brothers and sisters need. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me this weekend on African View Deba.
Thank you, Amadou. Such a pleasure. I'm so happy to do this.
Thank you.